Yeah, and then well, you mentioned an interesting thing there. So, like, right when you got that first job, were you kind of already looking for that next job? And like, do you recommend kind of being proactive as a young professional of like kind of like figuring out that next step?
Absolutely. I I tell this, to myself. I'm bad at doing that still, but I have a goal. Hey, every quarter I want to update my resume, right? You have to kind of keep looking at what you're doing, keep your resume updated, because when you're writing your resume, that's when you kind of realize what exactly are you delivering, what are you bringing as a value for an enterprise, because that helps you kind of also see, what your goals are, and are you actually on the path to that goal, right? So strongly encourage people to stay connected, stay, look at your resume. And I mean, you have to care for your own career. Nobody else will care for your career. Organizations will continue with or without you, right? If you made a commitment to the organization to deliver something, fine, continue to work on it, but don't get stagnated, right? You have to look at what's your goal, what is your career path.
And then I think again another great spot about your career itself is this idea of we always ascribe to this idea of like kind of get your foot in the door. And I was hoping maybe you could talk a bit about your experience kind of through Fujitsu and eventually landing at Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah, I joined as a consultant back in 2000, and I was working through. There were a lot of various projects that we were doing. I was primarily supporting the sales and marketing organization, and I've I've had my share of challenges at the time, but my belief has always been like stepping up and doing some of those projects, and there were quite a few of them. And I have worked nights and weekends just to like get us through that, right? And it definitely helped. And I had a manager or a director that I was working with. He took notice of it, and that relationship definitely helped, because when I was ready to become an employee, he pushed through that whole area, right? The process, Anheuser-Busch is not big on hiring people who are not citizens, but having the sponsor within the organization, like the director I was working for, being able to go reach and talk to the legal department, or all of the other departments, to say, hey, here's a person we really need to keep in the organization, I want to convert him. That helps. So if you're stepping up, there's always somebody that will potentially take notice and will help you out directly or indirectly.
Is there one specific thing you would do though? Like I would study more AI or prompt engineering, or I'd build my network more. Is there like one specific thing you do?
If it was me, again, I'm a firm believer in network, so I will continue to. I mean, it's like, it's a habit, right? It's no longer a, what do you call, a job requirement kind of thing. Now it's like building the relationship has to be table stakes. That's not something that you prioritize over others. It's their part and parcel. Like you're brushing your teeth, you're developing your network. That's your part of it, right? But when it comes to technology, for sure, right? Prompt engineering is really great. But again, it all depends on what area of technology interests you, right? There are, I have a neighbor here that works for Broadcom, and I'm like really curious. And like, how do you guys like think about these the infrastructure, the hardware to support AI, right? So there may be people that are more of that, they may be more inclined more in the infrastructure side of it versus the technology side of it. So whatever interests you, it's just that AI is going to be the future for us. That's a given, right? So from a learning perspective, depending on where you are, you'll have to look at like what are the things happening in your industry, and being able to spend and focus time in that area is going to be big help, right? It's not like one clear model to say, hey, you have to do this. It all depends on what your area, because there are so many things when it comes to AI, right? It's prompt engineering, or it's having it's not just the LLMs, right? It's now the SLMs also. There's small language models that solve a
Or
specific
the
problem.
synthetic data that they're gonna have to create to be
Exactly,
able to
yeah.
do all the
It
things.
could be the
Yeah.
data, it could be the infrastructure, it could be the hardware. There's so many things that are happening, and you can, I think they should focus on it.